Welcome everyone back to Wrestling with Politics. I'm your host Joel Perez, and today what we're going to be discussing, this isn't the story that I want to be talking to you guys about after the holidays. Quite frankly, this is probably the most disturbing thing that we've ever discussed on this YouTube channel, because in New York City, the city which I unfortunately have to live in, a woman was just burned alive on the last stop of the F train, Stillwell Avenue.
Yo! Sorry to his family. This is a person right here. Oh, bro. Yo. Oh, no.
And unfortunately for this lady, there was nobody around who seemed to know what they were doing, and there were police walking right by. So after watching this video, you definitely lose a little bit of faith in humanity, because especially on a crowded place like the train, you would expect there to be somebody there who knows what they're doing. But unfortunately for this lady, that wasn't the case. And that's not even the only story of somebody being burned alive in New York City. So it looks like in real time here, New York City is turning into Gotham City. So we've got a big problem here. And as you saw in this disturbing footage, a police officer just walks by as if there's no emergency going on. And this is a complete failure on the part of the NYPD. If people had little faith in the police before this, they have even less now, because this officer shouldn't have been walking by so casually. And if somebody had been hopping the turnstile or committing some petty crime, this officer wouldn't have been moving around so slow. But in this dire situation, in this emergency, he was. And so that just goes to show that the only job that the police have been trained to do is to enforce the law. But the police, they also have another key job, and that's to protect the public. And unfortunately, in this case, the police officer wasn't doing either of those things. He wasn't even enforcing the law, because the criminal who literally set her on fire was allowed to stand there and fan the flames of the victim so she could burn even faster. If you thought this story couldn't get any more preposterous, it does, because literally on the same day as this victim is burning in the subway, the governor of New York, Kathy Hochul, decides to go on Twitter and tweet out that New York has the safest subways in the world. And she decides to brag about the safety of the subways as a woman is literally burning alive, and they're cleaning up her carcass from being burned on the New York City subway. So I don't know what's wrong with the New York City governor. I don't know if she's just completely stupid and doesn't understand that that's probably not the best time to post that tweet, or somebody seriously messed up. But regardless, it just goes to show exactly how tone deaf the people in power are, because to tweet something like that as a woman is burning alive on the subway, yeah, the governor of New York definitely lost some voters on that day. And the behavior of this officer in this situation makes the NYPD look very inhumane, and it makes them look like they have a complete lack of regard for human suffering. Because listen, I'm not saying that this officer was going to prevent the situation from happening, or that he was going to be able to save the victim's life, but at the very least, he could have treated this situation like exactly what it was, a dire emergency. And he could have prevented this from getting worse than what it was. So with the same urgency that these cops have when they're chasing down criminals, they should have that same amount of urgency and training to deal with a situation like this. He should have been looking for the nearest fire extinguisher, calling in on his radio for extra help, or at least trying to pat the victim down with his jacket to prevent further flames. But instead of even running around doing something, anything, to prevent the situation from getting more dire, he was walking around like nothing was even happening. And quite frankly, that says a lot about this society, because I just want to remind you guys, the NYPD, it has the largest budget for any police force in the world. And in this situation, It damn sure didn't look like it, and I just want to remind you of one other thing. This is not what they're getting paid for. And if you thought this story couldn't get any more insane, and if you hear the story of the man who did this, you're going to have your jaw dropped, because apparently this entire thing could have been avoided with some common sense immigration policy, because this very man who did this crime was deported under Trump's administration all the way back in 2019, I believe. And he was let right back into the country under, you guessed it, Joe Biden's presidency.
Yo, la pregunta no es de que yo tomo mi cerveza y yo vivo lo que yo soy, mientras que no molesto a nadie, no molesto a nadie. ¿Por qué la puta gente tiene problemas conmigo? Ese es el problema. No vale verga.
So another victim of Joe Biden's border policy has ended up being this innocent lady on the New York City subway who lost her life in a gruesome fashion. This entire situation could have been avoided if simply criminals wouldn't have been allowed to enter the country, because I don't think it could be debated the most common sense immigration policy that you can have. The first thing that you think about when you're going to let somebody into this country is whether or not they have a criminal record. And under Joe Biden's administration, it doesn't matter if you have a criminal record. Millions of people were allowed to just pour into this country.
Even Osama bin Laden could cross.
He's back! Not bin Laden, James O'Keefe, the conservative filmmaker, wading across the Rio Grande to show how easy it is to evade border security.
This video has caught a lot of attention online.
Roll some video of filmmaker James O'Keefe donning an Osama bin Laden mask and crossing the Rio Grande.
One admiring website has a nickname for him, Osama bin O'Keefe.
Do you feel safe?
Regardless of whether or not they just came from the cartel, and regardless of whether or not they came from sex trafficking little kids and minors selling the worst kinds of drugs, it doesn't matter what you just came from. Come on in. That was the policy during Joe Biden's administration, and millions of people were let in. And unfortunately, this man who did this was let in, and now a lady has lost her life because of it. And the worst part about it is that for all the hard-working immigrants who do come here with good intentions to build a better life for their family and for their future generations, men like these, criminals like these, ruin it for everybody else. Like the tale goes, the bad apple ruins the bunch, because unfortunately for those good, hard-working immigrants who actually do come here to bolster the economy, Trump is going to crack down on everybody, not just on the illegal immigrants, because of the actions of the worst in the society. So again, this can all be fixed with a little something called common sense, but like they say, common sense, unfortunately, it's not that common. So if you guys want to hear a little bit more of common sense, you guys can make sure stick with me on Wrestling with Politics, because we've got a lot more common sense coming up for you. And all you have to do is hit that subscribe button, put sure to like on this video, make sure to leave a comment. Tell me, what do you think about this horrible tragedy in the comment section down below. For now, you can also check us out on Rumble and other platforms like Twitter and TikTok. And that's all I've got for you. Thank you very much for watching this video.
Hey Zoe, you got the